It's my great pleasure to welcome you all this morning to our regional head teacher briefing. And this is an opportunity for colleagues from CSC to share priorities with you for the coming term and to make sure that you're all signposted to key information. As I've said, these sessions will be recorded and you'll have access to any of the notes that come from this morning's meeting. They'll be sent out later in the week. Why have we put these briefings in? Well, it's come from a response from head teachers. We keep trying to improve our communications. We know that we need to make sure our communication is as effective as possible. Thank you to everyone who's signed up for our bulletins and encouraging your staff to sign up for our bulletins. But sometimes there are things that we need to share with heads or want to share with heads. And what we have been doing is kind of going through the various different associations across the region. But sometimes that's a little bit slow because of timing of meetings. So we thought we'd give this a try and see how it works. But we do need to make sure that we're listening to our stakeholders, and as head teachers, you're our largest group of stakeholders. So moving forward, if there are specific things that you want to have on the agenda for these sessions, please share them either with us as SLT or with your head teacher association. All of the head teacher associations across the region have members who sit on our representative stakeholder group. And this group forms part of our governance arrangements within CSC. And that's a really good conduit for heads to share that information with us. What we can do is we'll make sure that you have an up-to-date list of who's on our RSG when the notes for this meeting go out. So if you do have any concerns or any issues or queries about any of the work that we're doing in CSC, we do want to address these as we move forward. So please, as I say, share them either with your head teacher association, your IP, or directly with us. Moving forward in the new academic year, we'll also be doing some stakeholder surveys with head teachers so that we really can make sure that we're targeting the needs of our schools. We do want to provide a flexible approach that meets the needs of all of our schools, but we've also got to ensure that we have some regional consistency in that as well. So that's our ongoing challenge as we move forward. I wanted to thank everyone who gave us some feedback on our business plan. The consultation is now closed. It will go to our joint committee later today, and hopefully it will be published on our website later in the week. This year's business plan is being published a lot later than usual and we have in the past. And the reason for that is we've built our business plan around the local authority priorities. So I think one of the challenges for everybody is building in kind of local priorities, regional priorities and national priorities. So what this now means moving forward is that our staff are aware of those local authority priorities and will be using those to build some of those conversations and to guide some of that dialogue that they have with you throughout the coming year. Another thing to point out, you may have noticed that we've been recruiting additional staff for September. And we really just wanted to give you some rationale behind why we're doing that. We all know and are in various stages of readiness for Curriculum for Wales that's about to go online for the majority of schools from September. And Welsh Government have recognised that there needs to be additional capacity to provide that support to schools and that ongoing support as schools refine and develop their offer. So we have had some additional funding to recruit to that team. But what it is important to remember is we still want very much to have a school-led self-improving system. and we want to facilitate that school-to-school support. Completely understand that for the last 2 years that's been incredibly challenging for schools, because we needed to keep the capacity within your own school so that you could stay open and provide the support to your own learners. But hopefully, as we move forward through the next couple of years, there'll be more capacity within schools. So we do have more opportunities for people to be lead practitioners, enhanced lead practitioners, and for schools to get involved more in projects. So I know that Natalie is going to talk a bit more about that later on in this session. So really, this is an opportunity to share information, and in some cases to tell you that we don't have the information to share with you, because I think there are lots of things that are in the system and people think exists. Certainly, if you read some of the Wales Online articles, there's all sorts of things in the system. So we thought this would be a useful opportunity to share where we are with things and what's happening with that as we move forward. So really, that's all from me. I'm going to hand over to Andrew, who's going to talk to us about some updates around the improvements and partnerships area. So Andrew.
Thanks, Clara. Bore da, just a couple of updates from me, really. The improvement, evaluation and accountability guidance from Welsh Government is due to be published on the 27th of June. We've been reliably informed now that this new guidance does replace categorisation. So previously categorisation was in this kind of limbo of suspension. We now know that that's gone, and we're looking at a whole new set of guidance to support us going forward with working with schools. As a region, we'd planned the change over the last 2 years. So for us in Central South, there's not going to be a significant difference to the way that we engage and we work with you at school level. We have worked really hard to try and develop a bespoke approach, a very individualised approach to each of our schools. So looking at each school's priorities and trying to work alongside schools where they are with their development priorities to be able to enable our colleagues to actually access the support they need at the point they need it, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all model. We can continue doing that within the new guidance, so that supports the approach that we've got. So where we talked around where schools' priorities were, we would draw alongside you and look how best we could support you or broker the right support for those priorities. So that continues. There's a couple of changes in the new guidance. We've seen the draft guidance, and I've had it on good authority that there aren't any significant changes between the draft guidance and the actual final guidance that will be issued on the 27th of June. So within the draft guidance, there's a couple of changes within that. One of the key things is around a summary report the schools are expected to produce, and that is a 4-point summary that encapsulates your an overview of self-evaluation, strengths, weaknesses within your schools, priorities for improvement, how you're going to achieve those priorities, what sort of milestones are in place, so parents and stakeholders will be able to judge your progress in that. And then I think the last point around that is what support you'll be what you'll be accessing, whether it's you're going to go via CSC or any other support avenues to actually support those priorities. So that's one of the big key changes, and improvement partners will be able to work alongside you to prepare those summaries. Welsh Government's guidance is all around a bespoke approach to school improvement. So they're not issuing any formats or pro formas around what that summary looks like. It's very much an individual summary per school. But one of the key things is it's a brief, it's brevity, it's for all stakeholders to be able to read and engage with. So improvement partners will be able to support you in that. And the other change is, and it's an annual report that Central South or any region that's supporting schools is expected to produce for governing bodies, and that's a summary of the work that we've done with the school, the progress the school's made to meet its priorities, and any additional comments that I thought relevant to the governing body. We thought long and hard about how we can make that as useful and as simple and as straightforward as we can for schools. And one of the things we've been looking at doing is creating something called a school on a page. We hold lots of different bits of information. So one of the things that we're working on currently is pulling all that information into one report. So professional learning, all of the things that you engage with Central South around, any information you've got, pulling it all onto one page and providing it to schools termly. So at the end of each term, you get a summary of the interactions you've had as a way of supporting your own self-evaluation, but also as a way of you working alongside your governors to inform your governors of the work that has taken place. And similarly, we've had requests from local authority colleagues for a similar document, a school on a page for each of the schools. So they've got a summary of our engagement with schools. So hopefully that one document will serve a number of purposes. So those are the two key changes really within that document that's coming out from Welsh Government. But one of the key things I think that I want to reiterate again this morning is the bespoke approach exists, and we're committed to that bespoke approach. But our bespoke approach will only work if you tell us what your needs are. We can work alongside you to start to identify, work with you on self-evaluation, but fundamentally, if you can be as honest as you can with us, we can then provide the support we need to be able to support you the best we can. So hopefully with the now categorization's gone, the past history of what accountability looked like has gone, we can start to work together on developing a much tighter bespoke approach to working as a team. IP deployment. This time of year, we're all expecting to know where our IP's improvement partner is going to be deployed. I'd hope to be able to come to you at least this week with an overview of who your improvement partner is going to be going forward. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of late resignations, so we're still looking at IP deployment. Early next week, I'll be able to inform local authorities around what that deployment looks like. And once there's an agreement there, we'll be able to contact all schools with your new or your current improvement partner, so you'll know who you'll have ready for September. And there will be space for any changes, for any handovers or early introductions there before the end of the summer term. I briefly mentioned the school on a page. The representative stakeholder group that Clara talked around earlier have really supported us in identifying the kind of information that schools would find useful on that school on a page. It's still in a development stage, so any comments around anything you might find useful, please report back to your association rep that can feed it back into us. And the final one I want to update you on is the School Improvement Partnership Log, or the SIPL. We introduced a new School Improvement Partnership Log last year. We've refined it, we've updated it, and hopefully we've simplified the information input, and we've also simplified accessing the information within it. So we are just about to come to the end of the piloting of that. There'll be some updates for all schools on how to access the SIPL and how to use it to best advantage before the end of the summer term, and then early autumn term we'll be live with the new SIPL version 2. Okay, so those are my 4 updates. I'm going to hand over to Louise now.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of where we are with relation to funding, something that's obviously on everybody's minds. What we have moved towards this year, and we are going to be doing increasingly over the year, is ensuring that any funding that goes to schools will be included in the aggregated spreadsheet that is included on the CSC website. So previously, you all know that your EIG allocations and your PDG allocations would have been included on that spreadsheet. Now we're going to move towards having everything on there. So if you're a lead practitioner, that funding will be on there. If you are receiving bespoke support from us or from external partners that's funded by us, that information will be on there as well. So we are trying to move for transparency purposes, so everybody can see where the funding is going. Everything will be included on that aggregated spreadsheet. It won't be updated as a live document. There'll be regular updates to it, and we'll inform via the bulletin when updates have been made, because it won't be linked to live databases. It will have to be manually updated. But moving on to the actual allocations for this year, hopefully you will have been able to have found now that your EIG allocations are now on that website. and the final allocations, because we're using current PLASC to determine those allocations, we will confirm those later in the summer term. We don't envisage any major changes to them, but any changes that there are, we always take through the governance processes with the directors to ensure if there are huge swings, we have a discussion about that first before actually engaging with yourselves on any changes. I just wanted to let you know at this point, Welsh Government are reviewing the EIG formula, and that is due to take place over this summer term and over the summer engagement with consortia reps, etc. will take place over then. We aren't envisaging any major change at this point, but I did want to point out that they are reviewing the EIG formula. Those of you that, as I have been around long enough, will remember that we did have, I think it was 11 original grants that were then amalgamated into EIG. So the likes of the old SEG, the WEG, etc. Now EIG is an element within an umbrella grant, which is the Regional Consortia School Improvement Grant. So we may only have one umbrella grant, but there are a number of lines back within it. So I think it's timely that these are reviewed again, and that is a commitment from Welsh Government to do that. So that's, hopefully you've been able to access those EIG allocations, and any queries you can come back through the finance team at CSC with. I don't have the same information for PDG, unfortunately. Final allocations have not yet been received from Welsh Government. Clara and myself did meet with the Deputy Director only last week, the week before, just before half term, to ask why the disparity between the two allocations, when all of which are in one financial year. There are other difficulties with allocating PDG. For example, EOTAS figures are no longer part of PLASC, etc. So there are some anomalies which don't make it as easy to provide the allocations for PDG. Also, this year they are reviewing the terms and conditions of that grant. So that hence the meeting with Clara and myself to see the draft conditions. A lot of work is going on also with local authorities, and I have requested that they engage with head teacher groups as well if they are going to make any changes to that grant, especially in year. I can see a question already about which PLASC are they using for PDG allocations. As yet, I don't know. It will definitely be previous year's PLASC, because they don't use current PLASC for PDG. And however, the draft conditions we saw again had a typo in them because it had 2020, I think. And when we pushed back on that, they said, oh no, that's wrong. So I'm really sorry, Mark, I think it is. I can't answer that at the moment, but they are working on it. As soon as we get any information, the minute we get it, it'll go into the aggregated spreadsheet, and we'll commit to communicating with you directly straight away. So you've got those PDG information. Kirsty, are we looking at significant changes to terms and conditions? Hang on a sec. I think it's the same question. The conditions the draft conditions that we've had party to, and they do come with a huge health warning because they're very draft, and they're taking feedback from huge amounts of stakeholders. From what I can see at the moment, there's more of a commitment to publishing from a school's perspective online the evidence of why you are doing certain things with regards to that PDG grant. So I don't think the actual allocations are going to be different in any way in that respect, but I do think they are looking at potentially tightening, I suppose, the conditions of that grant to see where the money is going, what impact it's had. So potentially having a previous year summary, where did the grant go, and what was the impact of the grant, and then a plan for your next year's spending and the evidence behind why you're using certain initiatives. I'm just scanning, sorry. I haven't heard anything officially about any increase in EFSM per pupil, and so that wasn't included in the draft terms and conditions that we saw in a couple of weeks ago. That doesn't mean to say that's not going to happen. So unfortunately, I can't answer that one. I'll pause there because PDG is obviously the one that is interesting at the moment, because we haven't got the allocations. There's a lot of unknowns. So I'll just hang on. Is there any more questions regarding PDG? Okay, I can't see anything more in the chat. I think I've answered everything as it came through. Hang on, I can't see that one. So the extra 100 is going directly to parents as part of the PDG access. That doesn't come through consortia, so that hence probably why I'm not aware of that one. I'll come back to the chat if there are any further questions. My final section was really about the collaboration funding that you receive, and you will have been notified in the recent letter and bulletin that the collaboration funding has been, it's not confirmed in its entirety, but you will receive a minimum of a £6,000 lump sum per school and £100 per FTE, and that's as of recorded in PLASC 21. As you know, we will then review any funding that comes into us from Welsh Government in year. Ideally, all the funding comes to us at the beginning of the year and we can allocate it appropriately. But unfortunately, that is not the case. We do get a series of variations of funding throughout the year. Our commitment to you is that wherever possible, the most amount of funding will be delegated to schools, which is why we start the year with a minimum collaboration funding, and then we add to that throughout the year as and when Welsh Government identify further funding streams that have become available to them. So that information is there, and as soon as it changes, like I say, it won't be a decrease, but if there are any increases to that funding, then we will obviously get that out to you as soon as possible. This funding is therefore provided to support the priorities of your school and for you to engage with any aspect of the Central South Wales Challenge that is appropriate to your priorities and your work as a school. As part of the collaboration funding, though, as this is specific grant funding, usually with terms and conditions attached to it from Welsh Government, because it aligns to their priorities, we do have to engage with you via an SLA. And in that SLA, we will outline the expectations of that funding. And then you will be asked to produce evaluations as a part of a mandatory element of that funding. Again, those of you that have been in the region for a few years will recognise that previously we would have asked you to produce plans for that funding and to outline your plans and the evidence of impact, etc., as part of the SLA. Now with the SLA is just, this is what the funding is for. So we've reduced that level of bureaucracy with the agreement of Welsh Government. But we do, however, have to request or have to mandate that we have to have an evaluation of the spend. The reason for that evaluation is multi-reasoned. We do have to provide a breakdown to Welsh Government of what the funding has been spent on and the impact that it's had. We also have to provide that information to local authorities, and it is also used for our own planning purposes to see, are there any gaps in things that we need to do, and to plan our professional learning and support to you over the year. We have on a number of occasions this year gone out and requested that at the completion of that evaluation, we are still outstanding a handful of those evaluations, and there has been engagement directly with those schools, and the director is aware that if that evaluation is not completed by next Friday, so I'm talking of I've lost my calendar, by the 17th of June, then you will not receive an allocation for collaboration funding next year. Because we have to have those evaluations in. We try and keep that as minimum as possible, but unfortunately, we have been had to put that into our SLA for next year. I will just start scanning back through any of the other queries that came through. So the question about how will PDG be calculated once foundation fail meals are free to all, I presume that is why we have got a delay on the terms and conditions and the allocations, because I believe that they are still working through that. So their data units are modelling as we speak. I'll pause there. If there are any further questions, if anybody wants to put anything in the chat, feel free to contact me though directly if you have any further queries, or Craig, who's the senior accountant in CSC, if there are any other individual queries regarding in your individual allocations. If there's no further queries with regards to funding at this point, I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who's going to take us through the work of the professional learning and curriculum team and the support that they are providing.
I've got a number of updates information. Hopefully most of this is information you would already be aware of, but when we do visit schools, we realise that lots of information that is in the bulletin and on the website sometimes doesn't get through. So I am going to, as quickly as possible, go through reminders, updates, and hopefully some new information as well. So our curriculum and professional learning team, as Clara has already mentioned, is expanding to ensure that we've got the expertise to support curriculum rollout. We have a wide PL offer, and Curriculum for Wales is embedded right across that professional learning offer. So professional learning opportunities include live sessions, programmes, events. We try and record those as much as possible, and we repeat them because we know pressures on schools to attend. We put them into playlists and assignments. Everything is accessible to any practitioners, school leaders, governors across our region. Anybody can browse through our website, but to book onto any of those events, you do need to use your hub email address. Further to programmes and events, there are also a number of resources and guidance, so things like poster packs, FAQs, a wealth of podcasts, including lots of practitioners across the region sharing practice and ideas, blogs and vlogs. So I would just remind you to engage with our professional learning offer and opportunities regularly, because it is a live offer, so it is responsive. As new funding comes through, as new information comes through, as new priorities or updates come through, we try and ensure that there is guidance or programmes or events related to those. Details of all that can be found on our website, and as I say, keep an eye on the bulletin if you can for all that information. Additional to our professional learning opportunities, we then have bespoke support, and that bespoke support can be requested through your IP, through your improvement partner, or by schools or clusters themselves. So you can do that through contacting us directly, either with the lead if you know the lead, or through the cfw@cs email address. And if you put it there, you'll be put in touch with the lead, who will scope out the support you need and ensure that we can provide that support. So I'll talk a little bit more about that and who provides that support and how in just a moment. So just to remind you that all of our support is aligned to two main themes within CSE. One of those is our Enabling Equity and Excellence document, and that is a research-based document. Hopefully you've engaged with it. If not, please take a look, and your IP again can support you to engage with that. And that is based on research of knowing what makes a difference in ensuring equity and excellent provision for all learners in schools. So focused on leadership, focused on well-being, high quality curriculum development, inclusive classrooms, high quality teaching. And all of that, all of our professional learning are aligned to those areas. Within that document, there are questions and tools to support self-evaluation in those areas. And there's also links to further guidance. For instance, there's some fantastic guidance that Liz Jones produced with the LA inclusion staff and some of our team in schools on inclusive classrooms. It links to schools' learning organisations and some internal and external documents to support. So I would ask you to have a look at that document. And as I say, our professional learning and support is aligned to the things that matter within that document. It's already been mentioned a few times this morning, but our Central South Wales Challenge, so that is our school-led self-improvement system. It aligns to our vision of empowering schools, and that enables schools to become involved in supporting one another and leading the support across our region. So lead practitioner opportunities, you may have seen, hopefully you all know of lead practitioners. We appoint lead practitioners right across all areas of the curriculum and right across other areas as well. lead practitioners from last year, where priorities remain, have remained. We've had a new round of recruitment for new priorities and new projects, and also further opportunities will be shared at the end of this week for further opportunities for lead practitioners. So as Clara's already mentioned, there has been a huge pressure in school to ensure you have capacity within your own school, but please take a look and encourage staff to take a look. And if you do have expertise and capacity within your staff, for practitioners to become lead practitioners, that then supports the schools across the region. Leadership development is also part of our Central South Wales Challenge, and again, if you as a leader can support as a coach or mentor, as an assessor for things like MPQH, supporting interview panels, supporting the development of leadership programmes, and then becoming our system leader, which is a pilot this year. Hopefully, again, you've seen that information, then please become involved in supporting other leaders across our region through a variety of those means. And if you wanted to know more information on that, Emma Coates, our lead for leadership, produced a special bulletin a little while ago, and you can always contact her via her email address to talk about those opportunities. NQT induction is supported by our central team, but also by 16 schools across the region who lead our eAspire programme and our supportive networks. Today, we are holding our virtual conference on Think Like a Mentor. So that's for induction mentors. And just to give you a heads up, there are changes coming to induction, and we will give an update in September once those are released, and there will be some further training for induction mentors. Just to put a shout out for, even if you don't anticipate having an NQT in your school in September, you never know when staffing will change. So we would ask you to keep your induction mentors up to date by participating in some of those networks and some of that professional learning. And then school to school support as part of our Central South Wales Challenge. So this is where we broker support between schools. So when a request comes in for some bespoke support to schools, we look at, have we got the expertise and capacity within our central team, or is the support better led by another school, another leader, another practitioner in another school, and we would broker that support. So again, if you required support, or if you have some strong practitioners who you think could support other schools across the region and other areas, please get in touch. Louise has already mentioned professional learning collaboration, so I won't repeat too much there, but we do have clusters, SIGs, networks, and as Louise already said, there is funding with regard to these, and a big call out again for ensuring those evaluations come in, because that information is really important, both regionally and nationally, to plan that offer. We also have funded collaboration projects, so we have a variety of projects that bring schools together. We provide some funding to bring schools together, working with external partners or the CSC team on focused areas, usually around the curriculum. So last year we had over 40 projects looking at all areas like Welsh history, writing, numeracy, diversity, health and wellbeing. So our booklet for this year's projects will be released next week. Please share that amongst your staff. It is by application process. As much as possible, we try and involve all schools who apply, but obviously there is a maximum amount to funding and a maximum amount to schools. So as I say, please keep an eye out for that booklet and apply for some projects. And if there are some projects which you'd like us to run again, please talk to your improvement partner or get in touch, and we'll have a look at if those projects are priorities across the region. Just some specific events that we've got coming up and some specific information around Curriculum for Wales. So hopefully in our bulletin and through Clara's recent letter, you would see that we are holding a virtual conference on Tuesday, the 28th of June. That virtual conference will include some keynote speakers, some roundtable discussions, and sharing of some schools' practice all around Curriculum for Wales, focusing particularly on curriculum design and the mandatory elements of the curriculum. So the registration will go live today. There will be a special bulletin, and it'll be through our social media. That is accessible to all practitioners, all school leaders, all governors, right across the region, and in fact right across Wales. As I say, it is a virtual conference. If you can't attend live, because there will be some live parts, everything will be recorded. So as long as you've registered, those recordings and those resources are available for the next 12 months. So please, as I say, join yourself or promote that to your staff. And we will promote that further through governor support and through our bulletins as well. You may have heard of our recent curriculum design programmes. This was a programme in the autumn term that involved 100 practitioners across Wales, working with regional teams, some of our HEIs and external consultants from within and beyond Wales. It is aligned to our Curriculum for Wales guidance, and it looked at one approach to planning high-level curriculum progression, knowledge and skills. The playlist of professional learning has been released, and hopefully you will have seen that and you can engage with that if it is an approach you'd like to explore. The threads that were developed as part of that programme as samples of planning for progression in knowledge, skills and experiences are only available at the moment to people who attended the programme. And there are also some sessions planned for next week, next Tuesday 4 till 5 and Friday 8:30 till 9:30, and they will be released to anybody who partakes in those sessions or that we support. The reason we haven't released them more widely is they do come with information to know how and when to engage with them, and therefore, as I say, the playlists of professional learning are available to everybody, but some of the resource materials that were developed as co-constructed as part of the programme are released and wrapped around some professional learning. Just to remind you then of some things hopefully you already know, so we've released some resources to support understanding of progression and assessment, poster pack and an FAQs. Those are available on the website. We've promoted to you the recent Welsh Government publication on mandatory and statutory elements, and as I said, that will be the focus for our forthcoming conference, but please ensure you've looked at those. And this term, rather than the Curriculum for Wales survey that you will have undertaken during the last 12 months with your improvement partner, it's a slightly different approach to looking at how prepared schools are and what support is required. So the focus will be on the mandatory and statutory elements, making sure those legal requirements will be met by all schools that are rolling out in September. So we're developing a set of questions to further support schools with evaluating and planning around those. Those questions will be sent out to head teachers shortly, and IPs, when they come and visit you this term, will discuss those questions with you. We'll hopefully look at some first-hand evidence of your progress in those with you and offer some support. And then a commentary will be written into the school improvement log, into the SIPL, and that will be there then for you, but also will be extracted to report to local authorities at the end of this term on schools' preparedness for Curriculum for Wales in September. So as I say, hopefully more information will come out very shortly with regard to those questions, and you can use them in your own self-evaluation and in your discussions with your improvement partner to ensure you're meeting those mandatory requirements and those legal requirements ready for September. Schools that are not rolling out in September, we think it'll still be a useful exercise for you to do as well to help your support and your planning over the next year. Just some reminders about our Curriculum for Wales website, so that is available. It is a parallel website to our CSE website, and it does have a one-stop shop of all the resources, professional learning with regard to regional and national support for Curriculum for Wales. It is based around our design thinking model, which again, hopefully you've engaged with and it will support you on your journey. And just to ask you and all your practitioners and all your governors to sign up to our Curriculum for Wales community. At the moment, it's got about 1,200 members. And anything that is published with regard to supporting Curriculum for Wales nationally or regionally, if you turn on your notifications, you will get notifications straight away. So yesterday we published our monthly Curriculum for Wales newsletter, and straight away that was shared through that community, so you know the most up-to-date information. I can't see any questions for, I can see some questions for me. I'm just going to take a second, Clara, just to look through the questions if you wanted to look at that. I think some of them are around funding still, so whether we want to go back to some of that.
Yeah, I think Louise has been trying to answer the questions in the chat as they've come in. I think the one that was specific to your area was around the professional learning grant, which is coming but not yet known.
Louise, I haven't got any more information about that. We know that it's coming again, but I don't have any more information. I don't know if you do. No. And I can just see some questions here. So where can we find threads? I've just said that. So if your school was involved in the piece of work in the of one of the 100 practitioners, you would have already had access. And if not, as I say, there are 2 sessions next week, or if we're working alongside you, if you wanted to request some support for us to come in and work with you on those, just to reiterate, it is one approach, but it has been developed by practitioners to look at progression in knowledge and skills. Just some clarification there around surveys sent to schools. Yeah, we can certainly make sure we're clear. So as Louise has already said, that sometimes the surveys are not mandatory in as much as mandatory by Welsh Government, but they are part of the SLA agreement. Therefore, in order to access the funding, that would need to be completed. If schools, it would be useful if schools' resources are produced regarding progression of skills and knowledge at cluster level could be released to all. That's not right. Okay, so anything that schools share with us, we have to have permission to share. So there will be hopefully lots of sharing at our conference at the end of the month. And there's always a balance between sharing what other clusters and schools have done to support the system to reduce workload, but ultimately Curriculum for Wales is about school level curriculum, cluster level design, meeting the needs of your learners. So it's always a balance between sharing examples, sharing models, but also schools and clusters developing their own to meet the needs of their learners. But certainly, I know we've held some sessions so far in our AOLE networks where we've shared some examples from schools, and there will be the by schools for schools area in our conference will have some examples of schools and clusters progression and curriculum design.
Great, thank you, Natalie.
Okay.
I think in terms of the other questions, there was a question about it would be useful for schools to know when the finance was going to come out. We completely agree with that, and every conversation that we have with anyone from Welsh Government, we say, please, can you tell us when it's coming and what the formulas are going to be. We still, the financial year gone, we were still getting money from Welsh Government. Actually, I think the last one, Lou, was about the 20th of March that we got some additional funding from Welsh Government. So we're in the same position as you are with it, but we do keep making that point at every possible conversation that we have. And as Natalie said, Ryan, yes, we will make sure that there's some clarity around what we're asking the information and where that information is going, and why we're collecting it. I think one of the challenges that we've had, Welsh Government is working very hard to reduce the bureaucracy and paperwork going into schools, but all they've done is they've shifted it to regions to find out the information to send it back to them, which doesn't actually take any of the bureaucracy away from schools. It just does it in a different way. So we keep raising those issues because some of the things that we're asking schools for, we're not always convinced that that data is used effectively for anything, and it is just a paper exercise in collecting that. I think we have picked up the questions. We will look at them again after the meeting to make sure that we've addressed them and put any of the comments in the notes. Lou, the SLA for the new collaboration grant, has that gone out yet?
No.
So that's hopefully we'll have it later in this term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what we're hoping is to use the natural conversations that happen with improvement partners and schools to gather as much information as possible so that we don't have to do additional reporting and additional surveys. But what we also need to find a balance with is that our improvement partners are not just kind of research assistants gathering information and not doing any school improvement work. So we're having lots of conversations at the moment internally about how we can have that depth of knowledge of the schools rather than that really broad brush approach and just gathering information all of the time, because that's not what any of the improvement partners want to do, and it's not necessarily something that's of huge benefit to you as a school. So it links back into Andrew's comments earlier on about having that bespoke support for schools, knowing that we can, knowing what's coming during the year and building those into the work that's happening in schools. I think that's all of the input from us this morning, so I'm not sure if people have any additional questions. We are hoping to have these briefings every half term. As I said, I appreciate that 8:30 is not necessarily the best time. The next session is booked for the 13th of September, but what we will do is make sure that we get that information out to you in a different way if you're not able to attend that session. But again, if there are times that are more appropriate, please do feed them into your RSG link and we'll look at changing those as we move through the academic year.
Clara, there's just one question, sorry, on NQT provision in Welsh. So just to confirm, yes, some of our eAspire schools are Welsh medium schools, and we have from September, it's been part-time this year, but from September we have full-time Welsh speaking quality assurance induction mentor. And good news is as well that our TA coordinator, who is Welsh medium as well, is coming in full time in September. So we're increasing our support and provision for Welsh medium all the time.
Yeah, just picking up the last couple of questions. Yes, completely agree. Getting the grants in a quarter of way through the year, and in some cases they'll be almost halfway through the school year, is not good enough, but it's outside our control. But we do keep raising it with Welsh Government and saying it's not good enough. They've got to give us some indication of what it is, because if it's going to be a small variance, that's very different to if there's a complete change in how the grant is allocated. So we will keep fighting that battle. I'm not sure how we're going to win on it. The assessment information, clarity on assessment in the new curriculum. I don't know, Nat, if you want to pick that one up.
We don't have anything more than what is available on Hub, and what we've tried to just support schools in understanding a little bit further through our poster pack and our FAQ. So when we send the notes out, we'll put some links into those documents, but no further information that's already been in the system for a long time.
The SLA has been delayed because we've been waiting to know how much money we've got coming into that grant, so it's kind of chicken and egg with it. Anything on reception baseline? No. So we will ask that question and see if we can get any additional information on that. So thank you very much to everyone who's come and joined us. As I say, we will double check that we've answered all of the questions. I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of what will be an incredibly busy half term. So thank you very much, everybody.